So you had to then have the brain tumour removed. You were awake throughout that procedure. Some people think that must be horrific, but if you didn't have it...
It is, yeah. You're a moron and a coward if you don't take the awake surgery. The pressure that's being put on from the actual saw itself to open up the actual skull. Once they've made the incision, they put it off like it's a rug. So it's like, and they like, so I could physically feel my head being like tugged. Oh man, this is not exactly a 5-star hotel accommodation. I literally walked home from the hospital afterwards. You are like literally staring at people's arses all day long. You're like, I feel like a creep here. I did actually want to be a young father. Hey, do you want to have kids with me? I'm probably gonna die soon. Most money raised for running a marathon. 2.3 million Great British pounds, and that in itself is going to be a charity world record.
Hello, it's Michael George of Sagest Healthcare Consulting, and this is the Pioneering Patient Podcast. Now, it's always been an ambition of mine to interview royalty on the podcast, and today that dream has come true because I'm interviewing the King himself to talk about his battle to punch cancer in the face. Yes, it's the King himself, the King of Chemo, Iain Ward. Lovely to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much. And tell me, love your crown, tell me about the name, the King of Chemo. Where does that come? It's obviously, it comes back to your brain tumour diagnosis and what you've done since. So tell me more about that title.
The King of Chemo is just because one of my friends used to have a phrase of saying that he's the king of whatever the following thing is. And so we used to just say that as a joke. And then when I was going through chemotherapy myself, I was just saying it to my friends back home. I was like, don't worry about me, lads. I'm the king of chemo. Like, we would all say it, like, I'm the king of drinking coffee. I'm the king of, like, watch this. It wouldn't matter. And so one of them then suggested where it's like, that'd be a good username, Ian, if you want to use that for, like, social media. And I was like, take that, and it's worked. But in terms of, like, the reason that I have a social media account that, like, sort of specifies that sort of thing is because I was doing a medical trial, and the first medical trial I did was in 2019, where I had an MRI scan on my head, which is just an outrageous amount of look that was that specific. And then they detected a tumour. They thought it was benign. A couple of months later, it turned out that it wasn't benign when we had my second scan. And from there, it was going into having a cranioptomy and brain surgery, which was 4 years, 359 days ago. So, like, very, very close to sort of, this is kind of why I'm making all those videos at the moment, where it's like the daily videos, because like this kind of month, there's a lot of special anniversaries of 5 years ago, where it's like my first surgery, when I was told that I have 5 years to live, and then when my first video went online of raising money for sort of my dedication to breaking a charity world record. But so I found out that I had cancer, and then it was also during COVID, and I had started up a social media account, simply, like, not with any kind of a career orientated aspect, but simply to play video games in a way that was somewhat productive, rather than just kind of like using my time to sort of do something that's a bit of fun. I always prefer to, like, have something where it's like, I'm like creating something with this. And then, but once I kind of found out my diagnosis and my prognosis, and I went through all that, I decided that I was going to address the elephant in the room, because I was going to lose hair. Yeah. And so I was like, I'll do a little charity thing where, like, I'm playing the video game, and every time we beat a level or something, to be like, okay, you got to donate £1. So, like, something subtle to address the situation, but not to make it kind of my whole life focus, because it sounds kind of hypocritical or ironic that I try to tell people, don't let cancer define who you are, even though it has 100% defined what my life is, because it's all based around it. But the message is to be sort of what cancer is in terms of holding you back. Don't let it do that. So in that regard, I've made like a lot of attention in for my own cancer, but yeah. Exactly.
And so what you're diagnosed with, just so we know, is glioblastoma multiforme grade 3.
There's a mild conflict of which one it is, just because it's not black and white with which one is clearly this and which one is clearly that, and then the other one is some of the doctors think that it's an astrocytoma, but like it's in the sort of realm of the paradigm.
Yeah, and the fact is, you were known as the luckiest, or told you were the unluckiest unlucky man in the world, because it was grade 3, and if it was grade 4, we probably wouldn't be here speaking today.
Oh, not even that, but like the fact that I was doing an MRI, and I've done a handful of medical trials, not a huge amount, but like I've been a human guinea pig a handful of times, and for all sorts of different things. Like currently, I actually have a resistance to HIV, and that's because I did a HIV vaccine trial. And but I mean, there's no MRI in that. That was just blood tests. And so for this particular, the next thing that I was doing involved stuff to do with I think it was schizophrenia. So there was like, okay, cool, we're going to do an MRI on your brain. And then even within that, I even though I haven't done that many medical trials, for once the medical trial was actually quite recent before my the MRI scan. 3 months is what you have to do, and rarely there's another medical trial that suits the person, suits the candidate. But for me, they were like, hey, you actually, we could use you again in such a short period of time. Normally I do like maybe 1 a year. And in the previous medical trial I was doing, they were actually doing CT scans on my head. So the tumour would have been there at that point. It was 3 months ago, it would have been there. And so that means that the CT scan that they were doing showed no detection. So even when they were scanning my brain, they were not able to tell that I had a brain tumour growing. And it was only when they did an MRI that they were able to see it, which is just like, again, the level of luck in discovering that at the age of 30 is completely unheard of. So yeah, he didn't say that I was the luckiest unlucky man in the world, but he did say, like, you are, for someone this is very unlucky, but you are actually quite lucky within that realm. So.
Yeah. And so let's come to the treatment you had. So you had to then have the brain tumour removed. Mm-hmm. And you had conscious sedation. So in other words, you were awake throughout that procedure.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that, because actually some people think that must be horrific, but if you didn't have it...
It fucking is, yeah. Apologies for the swearing,
no,
but yeah.
As much as you like. But.
Yeah, it is. It's like, it's not particularly painful, but I always go back to the... like there's a scene in Casino where Joe Pesci has a guy's head literally in a vice, and he's like torturing him to get information from. And it kind of felt a little bit like that in terms of because it's not you don't really feel pain, but it's still just you certainly get a headache from like the pressure that's being put on from the actual saw itself to open up the actual skull. And then the other one is when they kind of make like a kind of a U in the skin, and they don't like rip the skin off. Obviously, it's got to go back there, but they pull it off, and they have to, like, once they've made the incision, they pull it off like it's a rug. So it's like, and they like, so I could physically feel my head being like tugged. It wasn't painful because they numb it, but it's still just like I know what it is. I know what they're doing. So it's like, oh man, this is not exactly 5-star hotel accommodation.
And why were they doing the conscious sedation? Because they had to talk to you throughout and get instructions from you, didn't they? Well, you had to give them instructions.
Like everybody has their own sort of life experiences, and everybody kind of handles things in different ways. Some people, they need hugs and kisses to deal with things. Some people need to be given tasks to get over something. However, I would make an exception for awake surgery versus under sedation surgery. You're a moron and a coward if you don't take the awake surgery. And I'm sorry if that offends people, but like, you need to slap up the arse if you think that it's a wise move in any way to not tolerate the unpleasantness of going through that. Because literally what they do is they prong around in the brain tissue, and they will test what is functional tissue in your brain and what's not. And the metaphor I always use is, if you can imagine a room with practical things in it, like a house, like the kitchen, the fridge is there, the sink is there, but then there's a lot of space where you can move around in, and you do not need the space. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to find the tumour that's in the space and remove that. And then when they ding onto something like the equivalent of the refrigerator or the sink, they can tell, because it's like I would pause before being able to say words. And so they're only able to do that while you're awake. Otherwise, they're just in the dark, taking out as much tissue as possible. And so for me, that's the difference of you tolerate this very unpleasant scenario for 3 hours, 4 hours maybe with the actual opening up of the skull. And then afterwards, you were able to function at a far higher rate. So I didn't lose my sight. I lost my ability to speak a little bit for 6 days. And then I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head, but like sight and hearing. You know,
voice, you could still speak. Did it affect you speaking?
It was very, very weird. So it was basically like I couldn't articulate my words properly, but it's not like my voice was affected in any way. And a simple example would be at one point when the nurses came over and was doing the neurological test on me, and I was actually playing a game of chess on my laptop at the time. So, you know, cognitive power being used quite a bit. And she comes over and it's like, right, time for your test, Mr. Ward. And I was like, yeah, sure. Put the laptop down. And she goes, okay, cool. Where are you? And I went, and I had difficulty describing where I was, even though I knew precisely where I was. I knew my way home from where I was. It was in the St. George's Hospital, which is quite near where I live. I literally walked home from the hospital afterwards. I knew, I could have gestured as to which directions to go to get home. And then I had to find a way to work around that location. And at one point I was like, I'm in the place for sick people and it sounds like hostel, but it's not. And then she said hospital and I was like, yeah, that one. And then I also, I doubted my own name, my own second name. When I was saying I'm in a hospital ward, I knew my second name meant ward, but I then doubted that was the correct word. And so it was such a profound sort of experience like that, where everything else in the brain was functioning, except this one very specific thing.
Now, all of this could be frightening, and it's like when you're given the diagnosis. I know first it's benign, then malignant. How did you react when you were told this news?
I mean, it was shocking at the start, but I quickly sort of went to what are the next steps? Who needs to be told about this? Who needs to be informed? And so that was what I put my focus on. So I'm the kind of person that if there's an issue, I try to put the blinkers on as much as possible. And that's not to say I'm going to ignore this, but more I'm going to try and focus on something else. Actually, that's a fib. Sometimes I do I don't want to deal with that thing, and I kind of I don't want to do my taxes. They're annoying. God, I don't want to do all that paperwork. And it's like signing on to universal credit, even though it's like, Iain, this is very helpful for you. This is how you're going to be able to pay the bills, how you'll be able to get food. It's like, I don't want to do all that paperwork, even though it'll we're literally, you do the paperwork, you'll get $1,000, you'll get £1,000 a month, that sort of thing. Sometimes I just don't want to do it. But for that sort of situation, it was overwhelming, but I was able to get through it in the end.
And I understand your love of war films helped you prepare. You're almost mentally prepared. What sort of person would you be?
Films in general are something that I'm very interested in. I'm quite interested in history, so war films would be something. The realistic war films I've always quite liked, because one of the things that I would be sort of doing is looking at myself in that sort of situation where it's like, my God, how would I do in Master and Commander? I'd be sweating all the time. I definitely wouldn't be able to be an officer. How do they wear their uniforms when it's in the Caribbean? I'd picture and that's what a good film is meant to do. A good film is meant to bring the person in to imagine this is what things are like, or the same thing in reverse, where it's a superhero film where it's completely sort of bizarre and it's this make-believe land. But I always liked the war films, because I'd be questioning who I'd be in those scenarios, and I always tried to to picture myself in a non-biased perspective, where it's like, I'd be Arnold Schwarzenegger with like, my two M60s shooting up the Nazis, and it'd be great. And then all the beautiful women would come over, and I'd be like, no, I only have one, and she's the most beautiful woman in the world. I'd try to not be that. Like, would I be the guy who panics? Would I be the guy who does this? Who would I be? And so when the cancer situation came up to me, it was sort of like that sort of scenario where it's like, okay, this isn't a war film, but like, now you're an individual who's put under a huge amount of pressure, and how are you going to react? And that really does help, because I've heard really good advice before, which is like, try to wake up every morning and imagine yourself as the protagonist in a film that you want to make. And so what does your protagonist do? Do they like study? Do they read up on the unpleasant sort of literary stuff that they have to do to pass the exams and to get the degree that they want, so they can go into business in the way? Would they do these things? And it's like, they would, so then go off and do them. Or would they have like, wake up and like smoke cigarettes and, go out and party? And it's like, once in a while, that's all right. Otherwise, you're not living life. But you do it every day, and it's you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, you got it.
Unless you're an artist.
Yeah, well, exactly. And you
do all the heroin you want, and you become a musical genius.
Well, not all of us can do that. You mentioned family. Who would you have to tell? So telling family must have been difficult, mustn't it?
Difficult because I knew they'd be annoying me afterwards.
Okay,
right. I knew like there's certain members of my family. I could tell my brother he'd be fine. But I knew my parents telling them they were going to irritate me a huge amount, and I was debating with my friends beforehand about how I really don't want to tell them, because they are, even though they mean well, like I was saying earlier, where like I'm much better putting the blinkers on and being like, okay, I've got to be at the hospital at this time, at this date. And I asked my surgeon, is there anything I can do to prepare in the meantime? And he was just like, no. And then so I kind of just took it on myself, where it's like, all right, he's saying that, but like surely if I focus on meditation, because I'm going to be sitting still for quite a long time, and just general stuff like that, I focused on making a load of videos that I shot a lot of videos and then didn't do the editing, because if I'm going to lose my ability to speak, I could actually still upload the videos from previous shots. And so like I've just focused all my energy on that sort of stuff, and I knew telling my parents would take me out of that, because they'd constantly be asking like, how are you feeling? How's the surgery? Or like, have you talked to the doctor? It's like, I'm feeling the same way I was, and no, I haven't had a conversation with the doctor because nothing has changed. We're not going to have the surgery until this time, so stop talking to me about this. Stop reminding me of the dread that I'm going to have to deal with. But like, they can't help it. So
it's like you said, you don't want to be defined by your cancer, even though it defines you. You want to live every day. Yeah,
like I'd be yapping about it every day on social media, but like I would never bring it up in conversation, even if I'm out in like a pub or an event or anything where I'm kind of there as I'm because of who I am. I did a cycle around Ireland for charity recently, and so I met a lot of people who didn't know who I was. And I never lead with like, hey, I've got cancer, I've got this, because I just know what's going to happen next is I'm going to hit a lot of questions that I've like answered 100 times before. And obviously that's very different for doing a podcast, because this is like this is what we're meant to be doing here. But like, if I'm just kind of hanging around with people, I don't want to be having the same conversations, because I'm just telling the same story again.
Yeah, exactly. So let's come back to Iain Ward as you were growing up. Tell us where you come from, what your family is like, what you liked doing as a youngster in Ireland. I think you were born in Clontarf near Dublin, weren't you? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, my parents still live there, so like whenever I go home to visit Dublin, it's always been staying in the same house as they are. And every so often my mom will like watch some sort of a Netflix documentary where it's all about like, the hardship that a child went through, and then they turned out to be like, a serial killer or something. And she's always going like, Iain, can you be honest with me? Like, did you have a nice childhood? Like, I just want to know, like, please just let me know now. And it's like all about how like more stuff about mental health is coming out, and for the positive. And it's like how like, I like my parents were nice and all, but like I had a tough upbringing. I didn't. I like my upbringing was fine. Like, we lived in a little cul-de-sac that was had a bunch of young families at the same time. So we would just go out and like play in the streets all day long. I went to a really nice secondary school that there was very little bullying in. I don't think I experienced any kind of, like, even with my other pupils in my year, I really can't remember many of them being like picked on. Yeah, I did loads of wild shit, but that was just because I was the class clown. But in terms of my childhood, like I had a you could write it down in a book for like happy childhoods.
Yeah, and so what sort of things were you enjoying? So were you very sporting right from the start? And
in some ways, yeah. I actually hated watching sports when I was a kid. It's so odd to look back and think of how much I disliked watching sports compared to now. But yeah, I wasn't particularly good at certain sports just because I have really bad hand-eye coordination, and so I was put off them for a while. And then when I started doing rugby, there's certain, like, as a forward, not at a professional level obviously, but as a forward you don't really have to have such high level of hand-eye coordination as if you're a back. Like a good one that I like is the backs are the piano players and the forwards are the piano pushers. And so I was able to like play that, and I was, competent. I wouldn't say I was good. And just with that, then running and lifting weights, and I started to get more attracted into the sort of the science behind lifting weights, and so I was into sports in my own way. I was definitely into like doing physical activities.
Yeah. And you also loved films and video games and those sort of things. They were all the time you were going with friends to the films, which were influencing you.
Yeah, without me realizing it. But yeah, I suppose like football, I never really was massively attracted to. So like, while a group of friends would be, a group of young lads would be playing football, we'd be like going into the cinema and just watching a film.
Yeah, and you brought up in Ireland. You came to London. Was that for work, for studying? You were starting your career?
Yeah, so I studied paramedic science in Ireland, but then that was during a recession, and so once I graduated, jobs weren't available. So I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do now? I looked into rather than just getting kind of a crappy job, I thought like I may as well get more education. And so I was looking around, and I thought nursing would be similar to paramedic science, and the NHS was offering a paid education. Yeah. So like that, not that they'd pay me to come over, but they'd pay for the cost of the actual fees themselves. So I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds all right. Nursing might be similar to paramedic science. I was very wrong with that assertion. The amount of paperwork is overwhelming, and also something that annoyed the hell out of me was the lack of autonomy. Yeah. is very frustrating, because as a nurse you always have to get the like a doctor to sign stuff, which is just, in my mind, I understand it comes from a health and safety point of view, but I also think it then like means that the staff can't do things, and it just takes more time that's often, I wouldn't say critical, but very helpful for patients. A simple example would be like, there was a woman who had motor neuron disease, and she was losing the ability to keep her neck upright. And so every so often her neck would go down like this, and so I'd have to just physically push her head up, and then she could maintain her neck upright. And so they were waiting around to see the occupational therapist, but it was like, obviously it takes a while. And so to help her, I found like there was an elastic band for something called Netty Nickers, which is like a thing to help a diaper like stay on. But I cut off the elastic, so simply just a cotton piece of elastic, and she was compos mentis. She was absolutely fine in terms of like her ability to think and talk and communicate. And so I said to her, like, how about this as a suggestion? This is basically just like a headband. If I put this over your forehead, it'll keep your head up, and I won't need to check up on you to keep. And she was delighted, absolutely. And so I put the headband on, held her head up like this, and so later on, one of the other nurses was like, you have to take that off her head because of health and safety. And it's like, how is that a health and safety hazard? And they were like, it could get under her chin and it could choke her to death. And it's like, no, it couldn't. How is it going to like flip down here, get under her nose, get under her chin? And even if it does get under her chin, that's less pressure that's on her forehead. It's not like, and then they were just like, it's the rules, it's the rules, it's the rules. And so I had to go over to her and then say, like, I've been told that I have to take this off of your head. Which again is hypocrisy in itself, because it's like, if it's a health and safety hazard, why didn't you take it off as soon as you were aware rather than get me to do it? Anyway, I hated nursing, and then I didn't finish it for reasons like that, changed over to sports science, and here I am now.
And then you did physical training. So it seems to me, prior to your diagnosis, what did you see as your future in life? There's some frustration there. What would you say about your outlook at that point?
With the fitness industry has quite a lot of ceilings that are difficult to push past. So I was teaching fitness classes, and then I was also what's called a gym instructor, which is kind of like the level down from a personal trainer in terms of knowledge that it takes to, like, qualification knowledge. But I never wanted to be a personal trainer. I really hated the idea that you're just kind of standing in front of someone, staring at them and being like, yeah, hips down, hips up, move your arm back. I like the concept of it a little bit, but a big part of personal training is that it's like cold calling sales. You just have to go up to people in the gym and be like, hey, you're shit at what you do. You need me to help you out. And so I hated that. And then the actual thing itself is that you are like literally staring at people's arses all day long, because like so much of a correct motion comes from the hips. Yeah. And so for that, I was just kind of like, this is uncomfortable for me. Like, I feel like a creep here. But it is like, when you're doing a squat or a deadlift, the pace that you are focusing on the most is like the positioning of a hip. And so I never wanted to do that. And that is where kind of people can make a proper amount of money to be able to, like, save up and buy a house and support a family and that sort of stuff. I did not want to do that. The other option was to buy a gym. I did not think I had was business savvy enough to do that. So it was this kind of thing where it's like, how are you going to progress with this? What are you going to do? I didn't actually want to do it on social media because, again, it was not something that I wanted to do where it's just like, look at me, look at me, look at me. I know it wouldn't seem like that, but I actually didn't like that idea. And so I was then thinking, okay, what are the other things that matter in life if you're not going to make your career something that is you're going to focus on? I did actually wanted to be a young father and have like a fair bunch of kids, because much that I know is an absolute fact from my friends is once you have a kid, that's it. You don't have a social life that's not revolved around family stuff. So I was thinking, like, if you're going to have one, you may as well have like 10, because like you're a father now. So you may as well have like loads of kids that you can like interact socially with. And so that was something that I was sort of focused on, where it's like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a good father. I'm going to do my job that doesn't bring in a huge amount of money, but I'm actually going to be there spending time with them rather than, I don't know, I think it's so weird the way, like, I'm going to work my ass off in my career so that I'm able to afford a nanny. And it's like, wouldn't it be better if you didn't, and then you spent more time and the nanny's not needed because you were there more? But, some people. And so that was my sort of goal in life. And then that just kind of fell apart. There was a relationship I was in. We broke up, and that was quite close to when the cancer thing happened. And so it was like, okay, yeah, this is going to affect your sperm. So it was like, this chemotherapy can, like, has a very high chance of making you infertile. So, all right, the chances of even, like, your sperm actually fertilizing an egg are now really low. But then also the pitch to getting married with someone and being like, hey, do you want to have kids with me? I'm probably going to die soon. Smart woman isn't going to be like, sure, yeah, off we go. I'm sure this will be fine. So I kind of knew that was not a realistic opportunity anymore. But then also this new kind of thing where it's like, never mind your career, breaking a charity world record is, it all kind of lined up very quickly with that.
Yeah. So tell me more about you. Very quickly after you had your diagnosis, you thought, right, I'm going to break this record and I'm going to use social media to do it. So what record are you trying to break?
Most money raised for running a marathon.
Yeah. And what is that record amount that you're trying to raise?
It's 2.3 million Great British pounds with some change, which is currently, I don't know how much the currency exchange has changed around at the moment, but it's roughly around $3 million.
Yeah. And so how have you gone about that? You've run a lot of marathons, half marathons. So what have you done over the last 4 or 5 years? How many marathons have you done?
I'd love to try and count them up. I'd say about 20. I'd say it might be a little bit over, it might be a little bit under, but that'd be, over the course of my life, I'd say that would be a realistic one. 20 official ones anyway. I've run my own marathons a few times, but I wouldn't count them because I haven't got a little silver medal or a little goalie thing and a t-shirt. Loads of half marathons under the same scope. But it was just because I wanted to do it in a very unique way, which was to not ask for donations, but ask to people to follow to get a then very large social media channel, which I then can use to attract advertisers and then give all the advertising money to charity.
Yeah. So you built up Instagram. You have on that, I checked this morning, 7.2 million followers. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so very well.
There's a social media channel called TikTok. I'm learning about this. So tell me more about that. How many followers you have?
How has that not been blasted into the news for you? Because there's been so much stuff about someone. It nearly got banned from the US a while ago.
Yeah. I'm learning about these things. TikTok. I'll join and follow you on that. So,
yeah. So
tell me, how many followers do you have on TikTok as well?
Think clock.
Exactly. TikTok.
There you go. 5.5.
5.5.
What? Oh yeah,
it's
sorry.
gone up by the minute.
Yeah, sorry. We are so this will happen within this particular month. So I do something called the Greatest Hits this is the second time that we're doing it. Last time it was by far the most successful thing I've ever done on social media, where it's basically a collection of all of the previous videos that did really well, that got a lot of views. And then I asked people to be like, hey, look, so at this specific time, we call it 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. So 34 minutes past 12, we're always going to be uploading an old video. But if you guys, the people who are already following the account, if you get in there really early and comment and do all this, it will, it tells the algorithm that this is a very special video, and it will go out to a lot more people. And even though I am I really do believe that it's the social media channel. It's not, I'm the individual that is the face of the channel, but it is a team effort. It's massively a team effort. And I think one of the reasons why I've ended up getting into the place that I am now is because I have focused on getting the crowd to engage with what's going on, because it affects us all, and we really try to get people to work together, and it has worked massively. So I probably will get the amount of followers that I have wrong a fair bit over the next month, because it is just going up so quickly. 2 weeks ago it was under 5 million on TikTok, and it was 6.1 on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
you've gone up a couple of million. You're now around 13 million. By the time this goes out, it could be 15 million. Who knows?
15 would be great. I suppose 15 collectively. I don't think that is crazily unrealistic. Judging by what happened last year, we're only 1 week into the Greatest Hits, and it's meant to last 30 days. So 15 million in total. I don't think that is a crazy number, and it makes me sound so a bit insane, I know, but we won't be able to skyrocket. This isn't going to continue the whole year round if it follows the same thing as last year, but we will have this huge boost in the summer, and then hopefully that will lead into the success of the live stream that I'm doing in August, and then the New York Marathon in November.
New York Marathon, okay. So tell me, you talked about it being a team effort. So what do you mean by that? You've got a team behind, but also all your followers are part of the team, would you say?
Oh, yeah. So Lucy and Foxy there, I consider them my left-hand woman and then my right-hand woman. Yeah. And so they'd be a big part of my my sort of admin team. But I strongly believe that everybody who follows the account instantly becomes a part of a team itself, because the world record is kind of weird, because it's the specific title of it is an individual raising money for charity, but I don't think it's possible for anyone to be an individual raising money for charity, because by the nature of it, it's like, hi, I'm raising money for running a marathon. Will you sponsor me? You give me a $5. Yeah. Already that means that there's two people involved. So it's no longer an individual thing. Unless it was like, I'm going to donate all the money myself. Yeah. That's the only way that it would work. And I mean, in a way, I kind of am doing that, because it's all about money that is like technically mine, but then get it to go to charity instead of going into my pocket.
Yeah. And so you've got two groups that you want to do things for you to help everyone get to this target of 2.3 million plus change. So you've got the people who are going to follow you and will follow you in the future, and then you've got the company. So what do you want each of those to do?
So the idea is that the audience makes the channel really popular, and so therefore they're just like a set of eyes, a customer base, and then any kind of a sponsor that will come in get to then advertise to the customer base to promote their products, whether that be sort of awareness to a particular product, or whether they want to sell individual items like Our Only Planet. They sell thermoses, and so yeah.
So tell me more about some of those companies who are supporting you on this challenge.
So last year we had a really good contract on with Vivo barefoot shoes, and we really like to do something with them again, because I'm a massive big believer in the barefoot sort of movement. And I know these shoes don't look like I'm sort of practicing my own word, but I went for a run last night in barefoot shoes, and now my feet are really sore just because I haven't run in a while, so I'm getting like the blisters are coming back. But I used to have Achilles tendonitis, and then I read Born to Run, and then so I switched to zero soled shoes that don't have any sort of elevation, and it just went away. It's always like believing in the product that you're selling is something that always is a much nicer way to do something, because you don't have to, say something that's not true. Like, hey, I love this vape. It's great. You should all do it. It's not as carcinogenic, even though the way we do it in society is probably more carcinogenic than cigarettes, seeing as how assholes are constantly smoking it in public spaces.
Yeah, it's very true.
And pretend like it's not carcinogenic.
Any other sponsors you want, or because of what you've had, you're battling cancer, you're saying you're punching in the face. What do you want? Support from healthcare companies, pharmaceutical, medical device
Anything at all, I am completely open to. So healthcare companies would make a lot of sense, because as you can imagine, a big part that you wouldn't actually be able to see on the sort of the demographic lists that we would have on our social media accounts, but a huge amount of the population of the people who follow my account would be people who have medical problems themselves. And so where I was saying about how we are, I really do believe that the social media channel is quite like a team stuff. It's almost like a mini community, because something that I'm trying to get people to do quite a lot at the moment is whenever I have a video where I'm saying this world record is not just about me, it's about your friends and family. And so in the comments section, if you have a cancer story, please say it, because then even though I put the fun in fundraising, and I'm I'm a class clown, and I sort of make goofy videos and keep things funny, it's important for people to see this isn't just a popularity contest. There is a huge amount of reasons for people to do this, and the stats are 1 in 2 that people will have to statistically get cancer at some point in their life. And with growing cancer research, that statistic, it sounds scary, and it is, but something that continues on from that is because of the cancer research that's been going on for nearly 100 years now, probably over 100 years at this stage. The survival rate is very high. And so I say the first part of that because it's the most attention seeking stuff, but the survival rate is also much higher than it's ever been. My mom has, she's in recovery from breast cancer. She's in remission at this stage. Breast cancer 40 years ago would have been a death sentence, and she's coming up to 70. She found breast cancer when she was stage 3, and now she's cancer free from that. And that is 100% from medical progress.
Yeah, and so that medical progress you want to continue. So who are you supporting with this, and how well are you doing in your mission to get to 2.3 million?
So the charity that we're focusing on this year is the American Cancer Society. We focused on the American Cancer Society last year as well, and that's simply because most of the people who follow my account are from the United States of America. Not really much of a surprise, really. I mean, like, the United States is the third most populated country in the world. And so we just kind of thought, like, well, let's just go with, you know, who it's going to resonate the most with. And then I think everyone from Ireland, everyone from the UK would be in the same sort of environment. I was like, yeah, he's just sort of playing to the crowd. We can back him up for that sort of stuff. And despite what many people would think, if, you know, progress is made for, like, the American Cancer Society, they're not going to keep it to themselves. We tend to share these sort of information, even though there's a lot of people that would disagree with that.
Yeah. And what sort of research would you like to be done? Is it cancer research generally? You're focusing on brain tumour research, or you
so that is something that I always found whenever I'd see, like, you know, someone who gets a certain kind of disease and then starts raising money for that disease. I always kind of felt like, are you not cheating a bit? Like, are you not like, hey, you're raising money for your own sort of health insurance? And so with that, it makes most sense for a cancer patient to raise money, because it makes a simple connection to the audience where it's like, this is what you're suffering from. You don't want other people to do that. But I actually wanted to make it as wide as possible to include as many people as possible, rather than have a specific focus on a particular thing.
And how far are you towards your target?
So we've raised, since we started, we've raised over $500,000, but every single year it goes back down to zero. And we actually haven't been gotten a huge amount of money in at the moment, because we have been sort of saving the focus for the 32 half marathons that we're doing in August. So that is where we're going to be doing the majority of our fundraising.
So tell us about the 32 half marathons.
So 2 years ago, I did 32 half marathons all around Ireland. I was running those marathons, those half marathons. I ended up hurting my leg. Again, nothing overly dramatic, but then I wasn't able to continue running them, which was very irritating for me. So I switched to cycling, and I did like a 50-mile cycle in each of the counties, and then I did hikes in the counties. So it was down to like the repetitive knee problem rather than just the actual movement of the legs themselves. And so it always bothered me, because everybody was supportive of it. Everyone was grand. They were like, "Yay, well done, you did all 32." But for me, it was like, yeah, I did, but I didn't do them how I wanted to. I wanted to do half marathons in each. And so I always wanted to do it again and do it properly. And so this time we're doing it. I'm not running them this time, but I'm going to be wearing a weighted vest, starting off at 32 pounds to obviously represent the 32 counties. And it's also going to be a non-stop live stream on Twitch, which is a social media platform that focuses on live streaming as opposed to videos being posted up. And that in itself is going to be a charity world record, because it's the longest charity live stream anyone's ever done.
Okay, excellent. And to do this, you must have a good fitness regime. You must be working it all the time. What do you do to keep fit and keep supple?
Very handy way to do the training for that is to simply wear a weight vest while I'm walking the dog. Yeah. So very handy to do that. I can do two things at one point.
And you got good advice for people. Like I noticed you said when you run a marathon, you got to go out and run a 5K or 10K the next day.
Oh, 5K, definitely.
5K, yeah.
Oh, it's a huge difference. It's like you start off and you are stiff as a board. It's very, very unpleasant. And then it is remarkable how quickly it quite literally flushes out the lactic acid. And by kilometer 3, you're not like, sprinting by any means. You're not going at a good pace. But instantly afterwards, your legs are just a lot less stiff. And I did that as a gimmick one time, just through social media, being like, doing a David Goggins kind of like, I don't care, I ran a marathon yesterday, I'm doing another one today. And so I did it as a gimmick. But then afterwards, I actually feel way, way better now. Just having done a small amount of exercise the next day, and I've stuck to that ever since, and it's a huge difference. Same thing with as soon as you finish a marathon, start stretching. You don't need to do it for like a half hour. Start stretching straight away. Otherwise, you'll sit down on the bus or on the the car on the way home, and you'll go into a spasm.
And you also, for this, to avoid all this stiffness, you recommend to coach people, train people in yoga.
Yep.
And
I never call it yoga just because the male audience will always be like, I'm not doing that. And so you call it like mobility training or, and then they're kind of like, oh, yeah. And it's like, I always do the same thing where it's like, hey, this is some mobility training. It's mostly aimed at people who are interested in doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because then it's the same stuff. It is yoga, but like when you say it like that, you get like the young teens who are like, yeah, I want to be able to like wrestle someone and break their arm. Cool, I'll learn how to do this stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's just yoga.
So yoga, this mobility training. I run a bit, and this is why we're both in training gear now.
Yep.
I'm very poor at this. So could you guide me on what should we be doing? Could you give me an exercise I can perform here now?
Yeah. So I'll show one that's very, very simple, and it's simply just stretching out your. So take the shoes off. Take one shoe off anyway.
Yep, right. Yep.
And this will be getting into your hip flexor.
Yeah, so hip flexor, very important. Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually one that. So whenever I teach these sort of little mobility classes or whatever, I always actually use the mattress of my own bed because a lot of people will be in cramped spaces and they're not able to do it when a bed works quite well. Yeah. And so what you want to do is you want to drive forward from your hip and then have your shoulders back. So you don't want to lean forward like this because then you take the pressure off. So you're up
like this.
And the way I always imagine it is imagine your the top of your head.
Yep.
And the rear of your ankle is kind of like a bow.
Yep.
So you have an imaginary string that goes down that way, and then this part of your body is the bow, and you want to try and bend it forward.
Yeah.
And so you should be getting a really intense one there. And if you want to up the ante a little bit, you can then raise the same arm that is on the side of the hip, other arm.
The other arm, right.
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, you were right.
That's right,
I'm sorry, just difficult from this angle. And then what you do is you'll lean over to the side. I think this is, I forget what the yoga terms are. I think this is half moon.
Half moon.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Whichever, yeah. Feels good though.
Yeah, no, it does. And then another one that you can do that is very similar in position, but it targets a completely different area, and that is to get into the groin, which is quite a hard one to do because often the hamstring will be very tight, and if you're doing like a touch toes position, if you're going like this, you will be stretching at your hamstrings, but you'll be stretching down here.
Yeah.
And so you touch your toes, it's down in this direction, and so people often actually feel it up here where they're the most tense. And so to do that, we'll go down to the position that we were in earlier.
Yeah.
And now from here, you want this knee to go forward and out to the side, so diagonally out the way.
Yeah.
This creates the space. And then so what you do is you then sink down, and you should be feeling a stretch down in this.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. And then you can kind of tweak around with it as much as you want. So you can either move your rear knee a little bit further back. And what I always say is that if you try to get the elbow to touch your ankle, that's a good sort of...
Yeah, I've got a bit of a way to go there.
Yeah, to try and like go down like...
Yeah.
Like that. And so those would be... I think these two are ones that people always like to try and target, but they don't know how to do it. So this one will be a pretty
this is good.
Nice one to go for. And if you don't want to get down on the floor, you can do the same sort of thing off of a chair.
Yep.
So same principle. Often you'll have to try and, this chair might not be able to do it right, but if you have like a kitchen counter, if you know it's your kitchen counter, you're not sharing it with people, you don't want to be putting your feet up on that. But you can go down and then kind of sink into it, and you're doing the same thing. This chair, that's not really at quite the right angle. But if it's a bit higher, you can do the same concept where you're sinking right the way in, and you're getting into the groin area like that. And then one other one that's a bit of a pain to actually try and get into the right position, but the outer part of your hip here and your glute, if you put your ankle on the side, and then keeping the front shin 90 degrees to your kind of your shoulders, and then what you're doing is you dip right the way down, and you should be feeling a very intense stretch on the side.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Then you can do that on the ground as well. where follow the same format as we were earlier,
Yeah.
where we're in this sort of lunge position.
Yeah.
This ankle aligns with this knee.
Yep. Okay.
The knee goes off to the side, 90 degrees
Yeah.
compared to the rear shin. And then you try and sink down, and you should be feeling that in your bum.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah. These are good
Now,
for
are
me.
you feeling it on the side of your hip there?
Here.
Yeah.
That's where I'm feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Where I have a lot of stiffness at times, so this is good for me.
Yeah. Well, it's like most of the hip problems that we have just come from this, like sitting down too much, which is kind of what that whole movement of like standing desks and whatnot. Because
You're doing far better than I am.
I assure you, the far side is not the same. If you look at the difference, the stiffness that I have on my right-hand side is so significant compared to my left that I can't actually get into a good stretching position, which is very irritating. So back home, that's as far as I can go. And so I need pillows or what they call blocks.
Yeah.
And then I can kind of sink into the stretch a lot more. But yeah, the more you do this every single day, it is noticeable how much it just keeps the injuries at bay. But the problem with that is it's a preventative training rather than something that's progressive.
Yeah.
And everybody would rather do progressive work because you get the motivation of seeing something increase or decrease. You know, running a kilometre in 3 seconds faster than you did the other day. That's much nicer than.
It's nice to do, but I suppose you won't be able to do that if you don't do some of these stretches.
Yeah. Now I'll do a. Do we have a t-shirt? Or I could just use a shirt. So this is massage is massively effective. Absolutely massively effective. One of the big problems with it though is that it's very difficult to do to yourself.
Yeah.
There's only a few that you can really do. Like you can try and do this to your own neck, and it's somewhat helpful, but it's not as effective as just another person, another human being come back and just squeezing it. For anyone who is inexperienced with the idea of a deep tissue massage, it's not complicated at all. You just keep doing this until you feel something that is tense.
Yeah.
It will be obvious.
Yeah.
And then you just go like that.
Okay, yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And so the only reason this is just a piece of cloth, never mind the kind of the colour shirt. And so this is going to be one for calves that is very, very sore. So you can choose to do this in two ways. This is just any kind of structure that's like this. You could use this piece of glass. You could use this this mug. It's just you get coffee everywhere. And so this is you want to get the ankle very loose, which might be a little difficult seeing as how this chair wants to slide. But get it so this is floppy as much as possible. And I'm just going to put this there because you want it to slide as much as possible. There we go.
Get down.
Thank you. So the easiest thing to do would be that kind of like sporting leggings.
Yeah.
That just it just slides so easy, and that is what you want. So here you're just pushing towards the heart, always towards the heart.
Okay.
And you are just physically moving lactic acid that might build up in that particular area. And if you can see here, this is really loose.
Yeah.
So an important part for this position is to make it that the ankle is on the edge of a coffee table or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if you have it on the toes, your calf then, you can see that like that is significantly more tense versus up on the ankle. And this is kind of more loose, but there is a kind of a sweet spot of where the knee is up, and then you want it like that. And that'll work fine. But like for the
That's immediately after exercise or just any time?
Anytime that you have a stiff muscle anywhere, like if you are cramping up in the middle of a marathon and you have something that you could use as a way to get in with the calves, then you could do it right there. And let's see, in a street, I think you could, if actually one way that you could probably do it is simply if someone was handing you out like cans of Coke.
Okay,
Or bottles of water. Bottles of water tend to be like hard plastic, and it can kind of drag on your skin a little bit, so you don't get that sort of fluidity, which is what you want. Yeah. But you can go like that and get rid of a muscle spasm quite well like that.
Some people use massage guns. Are they different things?
Oh yeah, I've literally got one in the corner right there.
Okay, and that's good. You use that all regularly.
When I need to, I wouldn't get into the habit of doing it when I don't need to. Not that it's a bad thing in any way, but it's just like it takes time and effort. So,
Excellent. Iain, thanks for that. Let's get back to the questions. In many ways, your life has been transformed by your diagnosis. The person you were before, you had your frustrations, and this has made you into a, let's say, you've got 13 million followers. You're well known. It's transformed your life, hasn't it?
I wouldn't say I was frustrated with my life beforehand. It was because I was happy in a lot of ways. Like I enjoyed my job, and but there was this kind of, I wouldn't call it an emptiness, but there was a feeling of like, what are you doing? Yeah. And so it was something that was kind of passing by my mind quite a lot. And I still have those thoughts, but in the complete different scenario. Like if I am now on a night out and I'm kind of at the point of diminishing returns with the fun, I will be there, a thing in my mind where it's like, you need to go home and go to sleep so that you're up in the morning and you're able to operate, rather than like I just don't take shots anymore. Yeah. Like if someone was like, hey, we're all going to do shots of whiskey, and it's like, oh, you're going to do that. I'm not. I'm going to enjoy this beer very calmly and not rush it and take my sweet time. I'm not just going to consume something to give myself more of a headache tomorrow. And
you become something, you love films as a youngster, and now you're producing films every day. Well, not every day. You're producing films regularly, you're editing.
Yeah.
That's been a big part of your life. You had to learn new skills in that way.
Yeah. I really like it if it involves music. If not, it's just work.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking to the future, you got your tour of Ireland coming up, 32 counties. What's your plans after that?
So the next thing that will be coming up organisation-wise would be the New York Marathon. However, before the New York Marathon, there's also... So I'll be doing the 32 county thing on Twitch live, and it'll be a world record. Not so much a world record, but like a Twitch record. But I mean, like they stand by their own laurels. And then there is a what's called a Twitch Con, which is like, Comic-Con, it's a huge convention. And the biggest one of the year is in San Diego. And that is just before the New York Marathon by, I think, 2 weeks. And so we plan on doing some event stuff leading up to that. And then so the timing is just very well suited. Hopefully we'll have achieved that record, the Twitch record. Then we're going to be going to the big Twitch event, and then the New York Marathon is going to come afterwards. So really looking forward to that.
A lot of travel, a lot of work, a lot of great things ahead.
Oh, but it's going to be so fun. We got invited to do the TwitchCon in Rotterdam, which is the European one, which is not as big. It's still a huge event, but it's not nearly as big as the San Diego one. Which I'm so new to Twitch, but like the people who I met were just incredibly fun. They're all just the same sort of. Full of energy, very social, something that I didn't actually think about, because live streaming, you're engaging with the audience as much as possible. That's what the setup is. Whereas I never realized how much of a difference that is to people who are like quite good on TikTok or Instagram. Often, not often, but like it's quite common that some of them are very introverted and they're not particularly social. They don't want to work with other people. They like their own thing. Even if it's a good opportunity to work with someone else, they sometimes don't want to do that. Whereas Twitch, it's just like, if they're free, it's like, hey, do you want to do this event with me? And they'll just be like, yeah. And they'll just show up. And I love the camaraderie and the let's work together. It just seems to be way more lively with that sort of thing. So it's just like organising stuff is just so much more fun.
And because it's all about collaboration, isn't what you're doing? It's the social media.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. So if you were to, sort of final question, if you were someone who's in the same position of you, they're just being given a diagnosis for what it might be, some sort of cancer, what would you be advising them? What would you be telling them? What would you be urging them to do?
Well, I wouldn't want to give a sort of a generic one-size-fits-all answer, because that's just unrealistic, and it's not. Everybody reacts to bad news in very different ways. So, like me saying, like, you know, I wanted to avoid talking to my parents, I am certain that that is very unique to me as a human being. I'd imagine loads of people would want a huge amount of support from their parents. If this interview was being done to somebody else, and they were saying, like, you know, yeah, it was in COVID, so I was actually away from my family, and that was one of the hard parts. Like, that's the complete opposite to me. Like, that is for me, it was like, yeah, COVID was hard because then they had to ring me more, and like they had to keep making me focus on this thing. And so for me to say, like, you know, hey, get out of bed and just grab life by the balls and get out there and like don't let. Some people will go the complete opposite way. Some people will want to focus on their cancerous situation. I think the one that I could sort of say that would hopefully hit the most people would be like, try not to have it define who you are. Yeah. Like, your life will still be your life. And the more you sort of dwell on things that you can't do and what you shouldn't do, I think the worse your life will be. Whereas like a simple example would be, I can't remember, someone must see me in the pub before, and I was like having a pint, and someone was like, you know, is that good for cancer? Is that not really bad for cancer? I was like, yeah. What's your point? And it's like, life is for living. And it's like, I'm not saying, like, you know, you should like take up smoking after, like, you know, I already have brain cancer, I can't get it again, you know. But there's a barrier in where you can kind of try and live as healthy as humanly possible to make sure that you last as long as possible. But then on the other side of that, it's like, at what sacrifice is that? Because you should be cautious, you should try to live as long as possible, and you should really start like trying to think with yourself, where it's like, you know, do I really like this thing? Like, sugar there's lots of associations with it being very bad for cancer. I don't like sugar. I try to cut it out as much as possible because I have quite an addictive tendency towards sugar itself. And so I've actually cut that out for since January, and I'm quite happy with that. If it was to be like beer, I wouldn't be happier with that out of my life. It's something that I quite like doing, and I am, despite being Irish, I actually do not have a massive tendency to, like, you know, get hammered and like stay out. Like, I was at a Rufus de Saul gig recently enough, and afterwards I was like, okay, cool, yeah. And the people who I were with were like, hey, do you want to come up to our house up in North London? And I was like, no, I've got stuff to do tomorrow. I'm going to run home and go to bed. I've had my fun. I don't need to, you know, keep it going. And so I think that is the important thing, to kind of try and find that balance of, you know, adhering to your own health, but don't make it so you're living a miserable life, where if you don't want to live like a monk, don't. Yeah.
And so 5 years on from being told you had 5 years to live, you're still doing brilliantly well, and that's fantastic. Iain, thanks very much for joining the podcast. It's been a pleasure hearing your story.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. And so that brings us to the end of another Pioneering Patient podcast. If you have ideas for future editions, please get in touch with me on the email at the end of the show. Otherwise, please remember to take good care of your health.